So we're going to be talking about Sara Everard. So she went missing. She's a 33-year-old. She was walking home over in London. They said March 3rd she went missing. The 6th, the police announced that she was missing to the area. They put out a whole thing for her to find her. On the 9th, Metropolitan Police Officer Wayne Couzens, he was arrested. Parliamentary and Diplomatic Protection Command is what he was a part of. He's in the unit that's responsible for guarding Westminster Estate, including Downing Street and the Palace of Westminster, as well as foreign embassies in London. So he was arrested. The 10th, they find a body. They're not sure if it's Sara or not. On the 12th, it was confirmed, and he's officially been charged with her disappearance and murder. Apparently they have a really big problem. I mean, it's a big problem everywhere where it comes against violence and sexual abuse towards women. But it seems like it's a really big problem, especially in the UK. They're saying 20% of women and 4% of men have experienced some type of sexual assault since the age of 16. That's the equivalent of 3.4 million females and only 631,000 male victims. 3.1% of women and 0.8% of men aged 16 to 59 have experienced a sexual assault in the last year. These were results from 2013, the last time that they did a study that I could find, an overview of sexual offending in England and Wales, the first ever joint official statistics bulletin in sexual violence released by the Ministry of Justice, Office of National Statistics, and the Home Office revealed approximately 85,000 women and 12,000 men experience rape, attempted rape, or sexual assault by penetration in England and Wales alone every year. It's been putting out a huge outrage when it comes to women's safety, and there've been a lot of protests that have been taking place, and they had one of the bigger protests close to where her body was found, and apparently it went super bad. Like, yes, they didn't want a lot of people coming up because they're still quarantining and everything, and they were trying to make sure that not a lot of people turned up. A lot of people did turn up. Somebody had said that they were just trying to find a space to cry with their masks, and just to be able to relate to other people and other women coming forth. It was a large majority were women that were at these protests, and we have a clip of some of it just turning really bad.
This is ridiculous.
So when we do a little digging, I mean, the police for a long they were there for hours. People were there for hours since there was still daylight out. They had congregated, and they were around this bandstand. They were leaving flowers, and people were talking to, and there was a lot of people coming and going. There was a lot of people. When you look at the pictures, there were a lot of people. At this point at the night, though, they were trying to disperse some of the crowd. A large majority of the crowd had left, and they were leaving. But then the police, somehow they started to push more into the crowd, starting to try to forcibly make people leave. And a lot of people just wanted to stay. They weren't trying to fight back or anything like that. A lot of people, but they were very angry, and it was very tone deaf for them to be trying to come in there, especially when this woman, now at this point, they knew that it was a police officer who had allegedly killed her. So a lot of them were very upset about that, and then having these cops just rip them from, you know, where they were standing and supposedly vigil, and they ripped them down from where they were standing, threw them on the floor, handcuffed them. You know, it was a big thing, and it was a huge misstep on their part. But apparently, when you do a little bit more digging towards it, it all kind of stems from Priti Patel. So Priti is actually, let me see. She's the Home Secretary. She's the head of the Home Ministry, Government of the United Kingdom, responsible for internal affairs of England and Wales. She's also responsible for immigration and citizenship of the whole of the United Kingdom. I had to look up her position because apparently she's kind of the big head that is responsible for how bad everything went during this vigil. Because back when the pandemic started, they didn't want the Black Lives Matter protests to be happening in the streets, and they had a huge crackdown on dispersing these protests. And Priti is of the opinion that she doesn't feel that these protests are very helpful at all. She does not think that they are worth it, and people shouldn't be coming out protesting anything. It says it comes back to Priti Patel attacked the dreadful Black Lives Matter demonstrations that swept the country last year, at one point suggesting she did not support protests at all. The police crime sentencing and court bill will expand police power to allow them to stamp protests that cause serious unease and create new penalties for people who cause serious annoyances. So they're trying to pass something that will actually help them to prevent these protests from happening at all. She said that she was going to try to make statements before any vigils started happening so that people wouldn't come out. She didn't make any of those statements. She kind of used this police force as a kind of a scapegoat, even though they should have really realized what they were doing. But she kind of used them as a scapegoat to kind of point her finger at them and say, oh, you guys should have handled it better. But really, it was kind of at her behest that she made them do all this stuff, to telling them that she didn't want protests happening, and it's been happening. That kind of an action has been happening since the Black Lives Matter protests last year. So this is just a huge thing that people also over there need to be worried about what's happening when they're trying to pass this bill. But that's not the only misstep in this whole clusterfuck that has been going on over there, because they're also trying to put in place a new policy for their crackdown on the Project Vigilant by the Thames Valley Police. They want to put uniformed and plainclothes officers will identify predatory and suspicious offenders in the nighttime economy. So they want to put them near pubs and near clubs so that they can be in the crowds trying to protect women from predators when they already have what seems to be their own problem within their institution of predatory behavior. So I don't know how that's going to make women feel any more safe. They have a spokesperson from the organization to reclaim these streets said women won't be able to trust that they are safe until misogyny and racism are tackled at an institutional level within government, police, and criminal justice system, it's absolutely true. Like, I mean, it's ridiculous. Especially when it comes to this bill. They said the critics see it as a mechanism to put the COVID regulations, which the Home Secretary used to impose an outright ban on demonstrations, on a permanent footing. So they're kind of using COVID to kind of make sure that they can always crack down on these protests. They're very much against anything that's going against the government. So they don't want anybody to voice their opinions when it comes to protesting the government, let alone all these problems that women are having, especially over there when it comes to violence against women. Boris Johnson will chair a meeting at the government's crime and task force on Monday to discuss ways to protect women and girls from violence. With under fire met Chief Cressida Dick among the attendees. That's the chief of police that was responsible for that vigil going wrong. They had many vigils at that time as well of like different in different areas, and they did not go as badly as that one. I mean, but this just seems like it's one, when I looked into it, it's just one thing after the other, that this government is really not trying to protect their women or trying to protect the voice of the people. They really don't want to hear anyone protesting. And it feels like this is like something we're hearing within so many countries now.
Yep.
I don't even know where to go, like which part I should be most upset about. It just seems like there's so much here that doesn't seem like it's getting better. You know, people want a voice. They want a space to stand in to protest, and they're saying, no, you can't. Not even for someone, a 33-year-old woman who was abducted and murdered by what possibly is a police officer. Someone that's not just like a peon police officer, but someone who was high up there in the chain of command that seemed like he really had a position that, you know, garnered some authority, and he completely, from, I don't want to say that he did it, because it's still, you know, he's being tried. I think the trial is going to be in October sometime. But all things right now are pointing directly to him.
Yeah, that's sad. You're right about the whole, many countries are doing the same thing, kind of trying to keep people's voices stifled. It's ridiculous. What do you feel you think the police should do? Like, how should they handle it in your view? Because I think that I understand like the whole trying to do some damage control aspect of things and why they would want to like kind of try to shut things down, but then at the same time they're putting themselves at the forefront of angry people that don't want to see them right now. You know, they don't trust them. They don't want to see them. They don't want to have anything. So how should you think
of the girl that was handcuffed, that the police were handcuffing? I put another picture up of the redheaded woman that she was handcuffed.
Let me see which one that is. Just bear with me. You guys discuss it. Let me just find it because it's kind of not organized.
I was going to just say it's very difficult because from what we know from a lot of, at least U.S. statistics, there's a lot of assault and sexual assault that comes from police officers, especially in domestic cases. So knowing that, I mean, it just seems like it's very difficult for one to trust the police to be the authority or to fix the problem.
So they have some pictures of these women that were arrested. This is one of these women. She wants to speak to Cassandra, the chief of police for the Met police officers that were there that had mishandled the vigil. She wants to speak to them to try to get some dialogue going. The problem is I don't think they want to speak to anybody. I don't think they want to talk to these women. I don't think they want to hear a lot of these voices. They don't want to hear anybody complaining. It's like, you should be happy for what we're trying to do for you, but it's not a lot. But I think that they're seeing that there's a problem, but I don't know if the way that they're going about it is trying to handle it correctly. I don't think putting more cops out on the street is going to help them. I think that when it comes to violence against women and women being harassed and assaulted, it comes down to education. We need to teach it. It needs to be taught, especially to young children, young male children, of what is appropriate and what's not appropriate. You know, that's where it needs to start. But there has to be some kind of an education program put into place, you know, and they always go back to like, oh, well, somebody's mother and somebody's daughter. That shouldn't be the priority, that I am someone's wife or someone's daughter or that goes without saying. It should be that I am a person and I don't deserve to be treated like that. No woman wants to be I don't know who's the PSA that I have to give this out to, but no woman enjoys being catcalled. No woman enjoys it. No woman wants to hear it. No woman gives a fuck about what you think, how hot her ass is. She doesn't want to hear it. And I don't know how many guys have done it that you never get the response you want because nobody wants that. And I was reading one time, somebody was saying it was the beginning of the Me Too movement, and the woman was saying, you know, the reason that women don't like catcalling especially is because we always know that depending on how we react to it, we know that you bitch is at the end of that statement, whatever they're saying. Because if you don't respond correctly, that's the next thing that's going to come out of that mouth. It's going to be some kind of violence. You bitch. Oh, why are you being such a bitch? Oh, you're a fucking bitch.
I don't know how to fix a situation like this. So that's what's crazy about it, because it feels like it's been going on for so long. Like, how do you, you know what I mean? There's such a huge amount of people that don't have respect and consideration. Like, they'll do that for their family members or whatever, but when it comes to other people, it's like they're a totally different person. It's like dealing with Jekyll and Hyde. It's the same person, but and then I don't know like how you change the stuff with the police either, because they're damned if they do, they're damned if they don't. I'm not a big fan of police or politicians and all that stuff when it comes to silencing people, because I know they're doing that because they know if it gets out of hand, it can cause riots and other things. And I understand why they're concerned about that, but it's also a power thing. Like, they want to make sure that they're dominant over the people they're protesting. They don't want rebellion in any type of way. And I don't know how to solve a situation like that. Sometimes it's like you want to say just avoid it, but that's not, you can't just do that. There's too many people in the world for that. So I don't know, man. It's crazy. This is one of the reasons why I'm not saying I would never want a daughter, but there's this lack of respect that's there that I feel is going to be extremely hard to fix. And then that plus like that whole stuff that the police and the politicians and all these people that are trying to dominate everybody else, it's like they're correlated in some way that it's like I don't know. I just think I don't know. How do you feel?
I guess the better question is, do we age out of this process? Do we educate people out of this? Well, number one, can we do it quickly? I don't know if that is possible, but at least is it going to get better as the generations kind of turn over? Because we have to basically confront that there's a sexual assault and harassment problem, especially from men towards women. So we need to confront that head on. I'm just wondering if you think that is something that is.
I think it's
we
possible.
have hope for the future.
I think it's possible, but it'll take a long, long time. That's just my opinion. I feel that with the information age and the fact that people are getting sick and tired of a lot of things, and it's part of the reason. It's crazy. It's sort of like what they do with like Black Lives Matter and everything else, how they detract by doing something else. That's what that whole cancel culture stuff type of thing I feel is like. It's like instead of cancel culture being used for the right reasons, they're not doing it for all sorts of other reasons to make it look stupid. You know what I mean? Like to make it less effective. And I feel the same way when it comes to this type of situation, that they do things purposely to make it less effective. But on the bottom, underneath all that, a lot of people are recognizing that there's an issue. And I feel like over time it'll change. Excuse me. Over time it'll change, but I think it's going to take a long time for it to change. That's just how I feel. Like there's going to be those people that are going to detract from it and make it harder for us to see the what makes more sense, and I think those that are educated and those that have hearts and care will do something about it. It's just like racism. People are like, oh, racism is not here in America and blah 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 blah.
Well,
and then I look at it, came back with a storm when you have somebody trumpeting like, hey, we're all racist over here, come join the crew.
Well, I think what bothers me the most is that the burden of women keeping themselves safe it's been put on women to make sure that women do not get attacked. For you to not make sure that you to make sure you don't get attacked, you have to do X, Y, and Z. Yep. But we are not the ones that are attacking other women. The burden of that should not be carried by women. It's been forcibly carried by women for so long. Be careful what you're wearing. Don't drink too much at parties. Don't drink from drinks that you don't know. Don't walk with men. Don't walk into the street late at night. Don't walk down areas that you're in. These are things that I was told by family members, from school administration, everything. Be careful when you're walking, don't take the same route the same time, all the time, because you don't know if somebody's going to follow you. The burden of keeping women safe should not be put on women. It should be put on men as the main perpetrators that are assaulting and harassing and killing women. They should have the burden of it. They should be constantly reminded not to be doing this to women. They should be, it should be ingrained in them. It should be put into them every single day from their caretakers and the people that the administration, everyone should be telling them. And men have to keep other men responsible for it. Instead of this boys will be boys attitude, or oh, when boys get together, how they act. No, you should be able, men need to be informed enough and enlightened enough for them to turn to their buddy who's doing something that they know they shouldn't be doing and say, hey, that's not cool. Don't do that. Leave her alone. Don't do this. You know what I mean? Like, it should not always fall to women. We can't go to a party without making sure we have a buddy system involved, where you have your friend that makes sure that they leave with you or make sure that you're responsible for them. There was a whole thing too with Sarah when she went missing. She had friends that they told her, well, text me when you get home. They didn't text her. She didn't text when she got home because she got murdered. And it's like, when she went missing on March 9th, it wasn't until she went missing on March 3rd, and it wasn't until the 6th that the police actually announced that she was missing and told the neighborhood and everybody that this person is missing and we need help finding her. I mean, that's ridiculous. That's 3 whole days later, that it might have been an opportunity to find her sooner, that this person might not have been able to get a chance to kill her. I don't know how long she was alive. There's a lot of stuff too that they've gotten autopsy reports. There's a bunch of stuff that they could not determine. It could not be determined, so we don't know how long she was alive. So even the amount of time that was taken to just find out that she was missing and for her to be announced so that people could actually act was ridiculous. I mean, like, we have 24 to 48 hours here. I mean, that's the whole point. And there was a flood of stories of women saying how they text friends all the time, and then if they never text back, they blew up their phones. They called other people to make sure that person was okay because of that. Men don't have to worry about that. I say that all the time to Rob. I'm like, you don't have to worry about somebody giving you a hug and pressing up against you for too long, or trying to press themselves up against you. You don't think about that because you're a man. You don't think about somebody following too closely behind you.
It's I just want to say one comment about it. The only reason why I think men can kind of relate to this, and I'm not saying they can relate in any big way, is when they're young kids. Like I've had my mom tell me, "Oh, watch out what you're doing." But after a certain age, that stopped. After a certain age, she, I guess, assumed that I was big enough and can take care of myself in that sense. Women don't seem to ever get that chance. Like, it's like their whole life is spent that way, which is really bad. You would think that if a young kid can kind of relate in that sense and say, my mom used to be protective of me when I was younger. Why can't we be protective of all women and show them respect but that's the only way I can kind of relate in that sense, because I do remember when I was in preschool and whatever, I used to hear things from my mom and my father or whatever to look both ways, do this, do that. But it was like it stopped at a relatively early age, at least for a man. I know that as a woman, it's always, you got to be on the lookout for somebody to do something stupid, and it's a shame. Like I said, I'm not trying to relate it. It's nowhere near the same thing. You know what I mean? But I would
like to say, I just would like to say that's like reinforcement. That's what is an issue for most men and I only say that from a culture that we were raised in. I don't see that from the culture of the people that I know who are raising kids. But I know that from the culture of that I was in, where the people that you follow end up being are people who are not necessarily there for your best interest and aren't necessarily going to be looking to give you the best outcomes for how to react to things. So oftentimes, a lot of urban areas for us, like not even for me, it's more of a suburban situation. Still, the people who were my role models at that point ended up being kind of misogynistic men.
Yeah.
And I was able to to see that and verify that and not follow in that path or try not to follow in that path. But it's negative reinforcement that we as men receive after, some time of at sometimes in our youth at least having some positive interaction telling us to behave, or not even just to behave, because it's not about behaving. It's about learning behaviors that are safe for all people that are around you. I was going to say one of the things is that, for instance, it would be great if people, both men and women, because also I was going to say that gay men have to deal with this as well, oftentimes from a violent standpoint, and it's just every community of people should have an idea of maybe you should be going to that party with two of your friends. Like, it doesn't matter if you're a man or a woman. You should be treating women well. That's something that we as men need to start reinforcing, as like you've heard your buddies say some shit.
Yep.
And
Yep.
it's time to just sometimes just say, dude, you need to cut that shit out.
Yep.
I've gotten to a point where I actually had that discussion today on another like little small like panel kind of thing. And uh, we just need to identify. Sometimes we have to be like, dude, you just got to stop, man. Like, I know you think that joke is funny, but you're not a comedian. Like, your joke, it doesn't land anymore. I'm sorry. It's time for you to quit this shit.
Yep. Yep. There's you're right. There was periods of times where I felt like people shoulda, woulda, coulda said or did the right things to push people in better directions and better outcomes. Like, that whole what is it? That male
Toxic masculinity.
toxic
That's what I was going to talk about.
Yeah.
It's toxic
Yeah, a
masculinity.
lot of
That's
that-
what it
that-
comes down to.
Yep, yep. A lot of that's being pushed. Even mothers back in the days. Oh, get up off your thing and be like, there's like I'm relatively older than both of you guys or whatever. So I know like over time things have changed and became a little more progressive and more understanding and more. Even though like a lot of people still are being kind of like taught the negative things, like to hate gay people or do whatever else, but I think it's gotten better to a large degree compared to the way it used to be. But there's certain things that I've been through in my past that it's affected me. I'm not going to deny the fact that I used to be super homophobic and have certain like views towards certain things. You know what I mean? Like I've said things and done things that I regret. But you got to learn how to grow out of it, and not too many people in this world get that opportunity or surround themselves, like you said, with people that would actually push them in the right direction to change their ways. Like I said, my mother used to tell me to be careful at times, and like I know that whole thing of like, oh, don't be. But then I think to myself, it's like, yo, man, imagine if I had to feel that way for my whole life, man. They attack grown elderly women. It's like women that you would think that, why are you going to rape an elderly woman? People rape elderly women. They do all sorts of crazy stuff, man.
Because rape isn't about sex.
I know, it's about power.
It's about power. That's what it is.
Like whatever thing. It's ridiculous.
It's about that power, and it really is. It's I feel like that whole thing too. It's incels and all of them. It just feels like there's a ebb and flow to everything. And hopefully, with everything coming to like such a hard head about how much violence against women there is, that hopefully we can bring it back the other way. And I really do hope, especially with these future generations, that it does come about to that. I mean, women shouldn't have to feel these certain ways. Women shouldn't have to think about these certain things. But like I said, the burden has always been put on women. You can't walk even through a car garage without making sure your keys are placed between your fingers, so in case somebody pops out at you, or always keeping your one eye behind you to make sure if nobody's following you. Don't keep your head on your phone. It's just like, okay, when is the burden going to be off of us? When is it going to be put onto the people, or the demographic of people that are attacking these women, and when is that education going to start? Because that's what I think it really needs to happen. I think that's where it all ends up coming from, is when they're getting educated and who's influencing them from the start. And if that is always in the mindset that you shouldn't treat people, and I even, raising a son like we do, I try to put everything in the perspective of not just women or men with him when it comes to everything, because I want him to have the freedom to be whatever he's going to be as he grows up. But also I want him to know this is the way you should treat everyone. Everyone should be treated like this, and if you're not being treated that way, you should recognize it and be able to step away from it. I want him to understand that, that it's not just that he has to be especially careful for women. He does. I do make sure that that's an emphasis, but that all people should be treated a certain way, and nobody deserves to be treated any kind of way. No one deserves to be harmed in any kind of way, and you don't deserve anything from another person. They don't have to give you anything. They don't have to treat you a certain way. Remember, everyone, to please subscribe and follow. We're on YouTube, Facebook, Spotify, Instagram, and Twitch. We'd appreciate the like on the video or the follow. Thank you for joining us today. I hope we all grew a little bit, shared a little bit about ourselves, and know a little more than when we started.